What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we are back with another draft video for the Detroit Lions. And today, we're going to be counting down the Detroit Lions' biggest needs for the draft this season. So let's get it started.
You know, I got to shout out DoseOfDion, man, because it was actually the first time I went live on YouTube. And, you know, guys don't know DoseOfDion. He put out a lot of good content for the Detroit Lions.
Now, we got the comment question of the day from my man Harold Williams. What's going on, Harold? Hopefully you're watching this video. My man Harold says, I guess it's not a question, but it's a statement. My man Harold says that he highly doubts the Detroit Lions will basically get an opportunity to trade back. He thinks the fourth spot, which is the Atlanta Falcons, is a very hot spot. I would agree with you. I think the Atlanta Falcons are a very hot spot to trade back with. I think it's a very interesting situation for the Detroit Lions in terms of possibilities. Now, we did do our draft guide, but hopefully we do get some opportunities, at least some calls about trading back. Last year when we had the whole Jeff Okudah situation, we thought we'd at least get some offers. Unfortunately, though, that didn't happen, and Bob Quinn said he didn't even get any offers. Hopefully that's not the case this time around, but I will agree. I think Atlanta sits in the best spot, and they're really the driving force of this draft. If Atlanta trades out of their fourth spot and a team jumps up to take a quarterback, unless someone loves that fifth quarterback, that consensus fifth quarterback who's still available, because we're assuming the top three are going to be quarterbacks, and someone wants to jump up in front of like a Denver or Carolina, it could be much more difficult for us to trade back. But there are still teams that could be interested in a non-quarterback, which is exactly what happened in that mock draft video. I appreciate the comment, Harold. It's good to see you. How you doing? What? I didn't know what to say. Happy birthday? Sorry. Welcome everybody to my video. Glad you guys are here. And yes, as of the time I'm recording this, we have 10 days. 10 days. I don't know what I was doing. 10 days until the Lions draft, until the NFL draft. I'm super excited, but it's almost 9. I mean, it's just in a few hours. It's going to be 9 days till the draft. We're going to be single digits, baby, and I'm hyped. So I thought this was a great time to do a video like this and kind of go through what the Lions' needs are. Now, I do got to give the Lions some credit. They did a great job of sticking to the plan that they set out to accomplish. The Lions told us this offseason, we are going to try to fill out positions, you know, with guys that are going to compete, maybe short-term deals, exactly like we signed so many short-term deals. That way we don't have a position that we have to draft because of need. We don't have to basically chase needs. We can just draft who we believe is basically the best player available. And I got to give credit where credit's due. The Lions did that. Pretty much every position, technically you can make a case, doesn't need a player drafted there. But it's more, we could use an upgrade. You know, that's kind of what we're looking at here. Or we don't have a lot of guys that are on long-term deals. We could use, you know, a rookie contract here. That's kind of what you're looking at for these. Lions did a great job. I think you could make a case for every position that you don't need to draft a player for that spot. However, there's some positions that definitely could use upgrades more than others. And that's what we're going to go through in today's video. Now, I was looking at the Draft Network, and they actually broke needs down into categories of primary needs, secondary needs, some word ancillary. I didn't know how to pronounce it, so I'm making it once. Okay, that's what we get over here. We got once. we don't got ancillary, okay? But basically that just means like, hey, you don't need it, but you can get it if you wanted to, and then not need. So we're gonna go through it like that. We're gonna go through all positional groups and start away from the bottom and work our way up and kind of just rank these needs. But we're also gonna put them into sections of like, hey, this number to this number is once. You know, kind of like that. You guys know it. You guys. How's everybody doing? All right, let's just get this thing started. Okay, so starting off at the bottom, working our way up, these first positional groups are the positional groups that are not needs. Okay, simple as that. These are not needs. The Lions don't have to do anything with this. Could they? I guess they could. If something came up that surprises us, something happens, definitely could become a need. But right now, they're not needs, all right? And there are three obvious positions. First off, fullback. I have it at the very bottom. Technically, if anything, the Lions could cut a fullback. Now, I know Ben Mason is in the draft, so it's very tempting if you had an extra draft pick, but the Lions don't need to do this. They have Nick Bawden, and they have Jason Kabinda. So they if anything, just need to figure out who they're going to cut, but they're probably going to both compete. So maybe a UDFA, something like that. I definitely don't think the Lions should be putting fullbacks too highly on their draft board this offseason. But, you know, I guess you could. I mean, you always could get better. But with 6 draft picks, by the way, the Lions hold the 7th, the 41st, the 72nd, the 101st, the 112th, and the 153rd pick in this year's draft. That's 6 draft picks for this year's draft. Also, they had the future picks that they acquired from the Rams, the first-round pick next year, and the first-round pick the year after that. So, thought I would just throw that out there. But fullback is definitely near the bottom. It's right here, my friends. This is the kind of smile that you make when you know ain't no one being drafted to your position. Jason, I see you. All right, Jason, you can stop. Stop. No, it's actually getting kind of creepy. Hello? All right, I don't think he's real. Then you have the punter and kicker position, the special teams positions. Once again, the Lions don't need to do anything with these spots. Long snapper as well. Punter, you have Jack Fox. You're good there. You got a Pro Bowler there, which is pretty cool to say. Kicker, we have Randy Bullock. Now, yes, could you add competition? I guess. I don't think you draft anybody, but maybe a UDFA to add to compete with, Matthew Wright and Randy Bullock. That could make sense. You look at punter position then. Like I said, Jack Fox, I mean, you got Pro Bowler, right? You're good there. And long snapper, of course, we got Mulebach. Now, if we want to go Jimmy Lands, if we want to get another Jimmy Lands, we could definitely do. No, not with 6 picks. Okay, I thought so. But he's only on a 1-year deal, so I'm just saying, it's always out there. No, that's what the Lions are looking like, right? They got the special teams positions looking good, and of course, they had the fullback position looking pretty good. Now we're starting to push into that wants category, the position where the Lions don't necessarily need to go this direction.
I need it!
They wouldn't have to, but if they wanted to, if they really wanted to, maybe they had some extra picks lying around, it's like, hey, I found $5 in my wallet. Oh, snap, I'm just going to buy this because I want it. It's like that, you know what I mean? Or you find $5 on the ground. You find your wallet. That's probably just your money there. So, I mean, you didn't really find it. Like, oh, I put up my wallet for $5. Like, yeah, that's probably your $5. I mean, but if you find it on the ground, that's a different situation. Always, hey, did someone drop that $5? Hey, give it back to him. Oh, that's not my wallet.
See someone drop their wallet. Patrick dropped the wallet. Now, what would you do?
Excuse me, sir, but I do believe you've dropped your wallet.
Doesn't look familiar to me.
What? I just saw you drop it. Here.
Nope, it's not mine.
It is yours. I am trying to be a good person and return it to you.
Return what to who?
First off, the bottom of once, I have the tight end position. Lions don't have to address the tight end position this offseason because they have a Pro Bowl tight end. They signed Josh Hill to basically replace Jesse James. They have Hunter Thedford. They have Alize Mack, both on future contracts. And they have Hunter Bryant, who, while wasn't very involved last season, could definitely take a step forward next year as a receiving tight end. And in the past, the Rams have definitely used their fair share of receiving tight ends, and they already have their blocking tight end. The Lions don't need to touch this position at all, and they could be fine heading into the year. Kyle Pitts is an interesting part of this conversation because Kyle Pitts is not like your normal receiving tight end.
Yeah, I'm different.
He's like his own breed, like receiver/tight end. So drafting Kyle Pitts is a little bit different here. It's almost like drafting a receiver as well. But for the most part, like your prototypical tight end is not a need, really. It's more of a want. I guess Kyle Pitts, I guess you could say is kind of like a want, but not really because he kind of fills receiver too. So I'm talking like your normal tight end, what you think of when you think tight end. Not Kyle Pitts. Pitts is he's just different. But, I guess this kind of fits into the narrative of like, okay, if you really wanted a tight end, if someone was there that you loved, or you're like, I got an extra pick, or we can't pass up on this opportunity to get this guy because he's too good, then that's where tight end could come into play. But for the most part, the Lions don't need to have a tight end as one of their top targets for this draft. They don't need to do that. I think this one fluctuates depending on who you're talking to. All right. And this is one that I think is it is depending on who you're talking to. Some people may say it's biggest. Some people say not at all. Some people say here or there. You guys can let me know in the comment section below. It's the quarterback position. Technically, Lions don't have to do anything with this. They have Jared Goff, they have Tim Boyle, they have David Blau. They could be good to go into the season. Now, Tim Boyle's only a 1-year deal. Jared Goff, obviously, we know that after 2 years, he has a potential out. And then you look at a guy like David Blau, right? I mean, is David Blau going to be here? That's the question. But I think when you look at the quarterback position, it just depends on who you're talking to. Some people may say, hey, we need an upgrade from Goff. Goff isn't a guy. This is one of those positions that fits right smack dab in terms of wants because it's like, hey, we don't technically need it, but if someone we absolutely love fell, we could take it. It's not as much as, and I know this sounds weird, I think being in a one spot, it's not as much of late as maybe you could go late if you had extra picks. I don't think with 6 picks, Lions would go late quarterback. I guess they could surprise and do something like that. But it's actually probably more likely that this would be a high quarterback. Someone slips to 7 and they're like, oh my gosh, how did he get here? Or maybe second round, something weird like that. Or if they acquired more picks than later in the draft. But I think some people could say, hey, this isn't a need whatsoever. Some people could say, hey, this is a huge need for the Lions. Goff's not the guy. Whatever you want to, go with. Now, for me, I believe Goff will be the starting quarterback next season. I think that seems to be, very likely to happen. But that doesn't take off the table that you could still draft a quarterback if you really like one. Plus, John Dorsey is here, which means you can't ever count that spot out. So let me know in the comment section below, man. Where do you guys have it? Above or below average in terms of needs? And that moves us on to the next spot. Getting more into the wants here, we have the running back position. Now, running back's an interesting one because I've actually heard a couple of bold takes here where people have it much higher. Some people say it's not a need. I don't think I can put it in not a need category because I could see the situation where the Lions drafted a running back this year. Now, after signing Jamal, it's way less likely, but I could still see the situation where that could happen. I mean, you have Swift, and you have Jamal Williams. You got your number top two running backs. Great. And you have Kerryon, who Deuce Staley talked highly about. So you really have your 3 running backs. The situation where you could add is depth, but that could be maybe another free agent or the UDFA. Lions don't seem worried about giving anybody a workhorse, one back type of role, and that's cool. But if you look at the running back group, we did have Swift miss time last season, and you look at Kerryon, he's missed time a lot of time so far since he's been in the league. So adding depth for that reason too, because of injuries, also could make sense. So I can see it for sure that some people could throw running back a little bit higher. But it's also a spot where, kind of like, tight end as a want, if someone we loved fell to our spot, we could do it. To me, this seems to be more of a late round pick, maybe. But maybe if you just, trade at any point in the draft, you add some more picks and you're sitting, wherever that may be, and you're like, wow, this guy fell. Like, the value here is awesome. Then maybe you do it. Maybe if you're looking late in the draft, maybe you're looking at a scat back. Maybe you're looking at Demetric Felton if he falls really late in the draft, depending on how many picks you have. With 6 picks, it makes it difficult to go heavy on once, right? But again, the Lions, their goal was to do this. So if there's someone they really like there, maybe if a Javonte falls to your 2nd round or 3rd round pick and you're like, oh my gosh, how did he get here? And you want to just do that because the talent is too good to pass up. I could see it because the Lions could use more competition and depth. You could always have more competition, but it could use slightly some more depth there when you talk about the running back spot, especially if they're going to be a run-heavy offense. Also, they could look power back like Ramondre Stevenson because they really don't have that. Jamal is a power back, but he's not like, a power back. So I could see how this could be a position where the Lions could go in certain scenarios. Maybe if Chuba Hubbard fell late, something like that. But I don't really think I could put it in a primary or secondary need. Edge, the Lions could say, hey, yeah, we want to have a guy to play the jack role, but I think they have multiple guys that can do that. Probably Austin Bryant, but now you have Charles Harris, maybe that's Julian. Or if you're looking defensive end, you're say, okay, we have Julian Okora, we have Romeo Okora, we have Trey Flowers, right? Like I said, we have Charles Harris, we have Austin Bryant. So we have the depth on the defensive end position, but there still are some question marks. So if you wanted to add more talent here, I could see it. Trey and Romeo, you know what you're going to get. Bryant hasn't been a great pass rusher so far, even though he hasn't played a ton. He's been more of a run defender. And depending on the scheme, I like him a lot, not going against an offensive tackle, but we'll see. If it's a 4-3, that might not be an option. But then, of course, you have Julian. I think Julian is very talented. I'm excited to see him. Hopefully we can see him next year, but still sort of unproven here. And Charles Harris, 1-year deal, prove it deal, right? He may not be here next season. He hasn't been great, but a one-gapping defense, which I'm thinking we'll go to, could be very beneficial for him. For 4-3, let's just say, you interior defensive lineman, you have Deshaun Hand, you have Nick Williams, you have Michael Brackers, which I think was a very big trade because I think it opened this up a lot. You have John Pennicini. Okay, who did I miss? Jayshon Cornell also fits in there as he was better there at Ohio State. That's kind of what you're looking at. So you got the depth. You definitely have the depth. For me, it's more of, do you want to draft a pass rushing DT? Does someone fall that you want to draft? I wouldn't put it in the need category because I think there's depth there, but I think it's still, it's not completely a one. I could understand, slightly seeing the need to add depth here if you don't think we have enough valid or valuable pass rushers in the inside, especially if you're doing a 4-3, because if you're running a 4-3 and you only have really one pass rushing DT that you're confident in, that's a problem. Michael Brackers is a good run defender. He's an okay pass rusher, not great. He's okay though. He's solid. He's solid at it for sure. And then you look at a guy like Cornell. I'm excited. I think he can definitely get after quarterback, but he wasn't healthy last season, so we still don't exactly know what to expect from him on the field when he comes back and healthy against NFL competition, right? So there's still some questions there. So really the only, and Deshaun Hand hasn't been much of a pass rusher. You have Nick Williams. Maybe he's, the most, him and Michael Brackers. So I could understand where you'd want to say pass rush there. Run stopper, I think we're okay, but I guess you could always do that if you had extra picks late because run stoppers usually fall pretty late. It's a pretty scheme-dependent position. If we're playing a 3-4 defense, the need here is way less because you only need 3 defensive linemen, right? That puts more of a need on the edge position, but I think we have the edge guys. If you're in a 4-3, however, now when you're talking interior defensive line, you're looking at 2 defensive tackles. That definitely increases the need. Regardless, though, I still think defensive line is extremely deep for the Detroit Lions. So still up to this point, I think we're looking pretty strong. Now, these next 5, honestly, are all interchangeable. I didn't really know how to order these, so I kind of struggle with it. So I'm just kind of, these are always, every day I could easily change these, right? But here's what I'm thinking for the top 5. Regardless, to me, these are the primary needs. The first one might be pushing more secondary, but first off, I have offensive lineman at 5 here. Offensive lineman, you could make the case it's a secondary need. I think it's maybe secondary pushing into primary need. Because offensive line, if you look at it as a whole, they said it was the deepest position. The Lions have lost some pieces there. But if you look at it as a whole, the Lions don't really have to do a ton to that, and they could go into the season, and it'd probably be an average offensive line, right? If Big V improves, you could be even looking better than that. So, if you just look at it like it is now, it's not that bad. But I would say if you broke it into categories, first off, my biggest need would be tackle and offensive line, followed closely second by guard. First off, tackle would be right tackle. Left tackle, you have Decker. Behind Crosby and Decker, you're looking at Matt Nelson. You're looking at Dan Skipper. Not bad backups, but I mean, how are you going to feel if they have to step in, right? I mean, they're backups. So when you look at the tackle position, it's also understanding your contracts, that Crosby's deal is up after the season, that Big V has an out after this season. I expect Big V to move to guard. So I think tackle's probably the position that's slightly the biggest need on the offensive line. And it's one of those spots that could also open up other positions for guys to move around. Plus, if you draft certain tackles, they could also play guard, so it gives you that versatility. If you go early tackle in this draft, I think you could have a shot at grabbing a starting right tackle and replacing Terrell Crosby. But the longer you wait, as soon as you start pushing round 3, I think specifically, sometimes even at round 2, you're starting to look at guys that maybe not able to start this season, but instead could be looking at a starting role next season when Crosby's contract is up, depending on what they want to do with that, when Big V has a potential out. So regardless here for tackle, you could look at it as, hey, we need to upgrade a tackle, or you could say, hey, we just need to get someone for depth now, but also developmental. That way we can have a starting tackle next season, and we're prepared, for the future of this. Either way, I think either way is fine here, but tackle's, probably the biggest on the offensive line. Secondly would be guard. Now, guard, I don't think you need a starter here necessarily as much as you could potentially go that direction at tackle. I don't really think you need a starter here with Jonah Jackson and Big V. I expect to play guard like the line said, which I think makes sense. And then behind that, you have Logan Stenberg. I don't know what that's going to leverage. Can Logan win the guard role? It would shock me, but it'd be kind of cool to see. I'm not going to lie. Regardless, though, guard is one of those spots where the Lions could just use that depth. Now, the Lions did say Sadiba's position, the offensive line, but this offseason they have cut Joe Dahl, which is sad. Joe Dahl did it all. And you also lost out on Ode Ibushi, Kenny Wiggins. So you lost some depth. There's no question you lost depth at guard. So for me right now, it's not as much as we need a starter, unless you wanted to go starter and someone like you really like was there. I don't know. Maybe if you're looking at the guy out at Ohio State, can't think of his name off the top of my head. Something like that. Maybe you plug in and play right guard there. But I think of maybe even more depth. I don't think you need to draft a guard in this draft. Here's where it gets kind of tricky, because I have offensive line listed as secondary pushing primary need. But if guard was alone, I'd probably have it, somewhere in the wants category. But tackle is kind of up there too. So center, it's kind of all balanced itself out to this where it is as a whole. But guard would be lower than tackle. Tackle could be pushing primary. I think guard would be more in the wants category / pushing up on secondary. And then finally, you have center. Center, we have Frank. We don't really have great depth behind that. I don't think Toth is here anymore. I don't think he is. However, behind that, you don't really have much depth here of guys that have cross-trained. And pretty much if you grab a guard, they might be able to play center. So at that point, I think center is probably the lowest need in terms of offensive line. But again, it's still there. And, even drafting any offensive lineman could allow more guys to move around and would add more depth. That's how I look at the offensive line. Really a high secondary need pushing into primary need. I try to really limit the primary need positions. If it was by itself as a position, it'd probably fall in once, maybe close to secondary needs. Tackle could easily push top 3. I mean, honestly, you could put tackle in the top 3, and I think that'd be perfectly fine. Easily to do that. You could say tackles 1, 2, or 3 if you wanted to. Alone, that positional group for mainly the right tackle position. And I think center would be down near the, wants to not really a need, because so many guys can cross-play that position. As a holistic thing, I put it as 5, just kind of as an average, because I didn't know how else to do it. But if you broke them into positions, separately, that's kind of how I look at it. If you name my recent mock drafts, usually I draft like one of these upcoming positions, at least one of all of these positions. That's how I see the draft. So it's very difficult for me to, try to tell which one is more of a need than another. But I think when you break it down, it's just how the board is falling, right? I mean, if receivers are falling, then I'm willing to wait at that spot. If I think safety's falling because safety's deep, I'm very willing to wait at that spot. It doesn't make it less of a need. I'm just very willing to wait. If linebacker's falling, I can wait on linebacker. It just depends on what is falling, but I usually draft one of all those positions. Offensive line is one of those spots where I definitely think you should at least try to draft one offensive lineman somewhere in the draft. Even if you don't get more picks, try to draft one offensive lineman, because I think drafting none would be tough, at least for the depth side of things. You only need to try to draft a starting right tackle, but at least get some depth here. I think you should draft at least one offensive lineman somewhere on the line in this year's draft. And that could come with your last pick if you wanted to, but just someone at least for some depth. But like I said, all 5 of these are relatively interchangeable. And just because I have it secondary pushing primary doesn't mean your first pick can't be a tackle if you wanted to go that route. The safety position is going to be a spot where I would definitely think the Lions are going to draft someone this year. When you look at the safety position, we have Walker, we have Will, so we have 2 young guys there. We also signed Dean Marlowe. We have Godwin, the guy who's on the Futures contract. We also have Bobby Price. I mean, we have guys here. We could technically roll up in the season, rocking with those 5 safeties, be like, hey, let's do this thing. But I'm expecting safety to be a big part. You're going to see a lot of 5 defensive backs. You're going to have depth at safety. And while Will and Walker could be looking at a bigger role, I definitely think the Lions will draft somewhere in this draft, even with this 6 picks, a safety somewhere. That could range from, honestly, late first round if you're trading back that far, all the way through the draft. I like the safety class. It's deep. So even though I have it listed as a top need, I still can see the Lions waiting on this position. Yeah, I still think they'll draft one. The Lions know how to develop safeties, and also Brad Holmes told us he believes it's one of the deepest positions in this class, and it really is. It's deep throughout, but I definitely think safety is up there as just adding another piece for competition would be very beneficial. Marlowe, I don't think helps you much as a slot corner sliding down into that role. Will Harris, Tracy Walker. I mean, Walker is solid. Will is slightly improving, but I think he could definitely get better. He could be looking at more of that box slot role, but, you could be looking at some help there. Maybe even looking at a deep safety, so really any position, strong, free, whatever kind of safety you're looking for here, adding another safety could definitely happen. If you have multiple picks, it could also be multiple safeties in this draft. Next up then, like I said, all these positions are really interchangeable. So cornerback, when you look at the cornerback spot, sort of similar to safety, they could pretty much roll up next season with what they have. However, they still could at least use some depth. Yes, you could get that in free agency, or you could get that with UDFAs. But I think when I look at cornerback, the reason it's slightly higher for me is because, okay, we have Jeff, we have Amani, but then you have Dunbar on a one-year deal who's already missed multiple, missed a pretty good amount of time with injuries recently. So, there's a chance for that. Then you look at a guy like Cornelder. He's here for this year. Will he be a future player? Who knows? I mean, we do this at a lot of positions. You have Mike Ford. He's also on a one-year deal. So not only does this for now, adding depth now, but it's also one of those spots where you could say, hey, we also would like to develop someone, because cornerback takes a long time to transition to the NFL. So the earlier you can get him started, if you're saying where are we in 2022, well, if you draft a corner this year, it can really help him, because by next season they'll have a whole full year under their belt, and they could be much improved and much bigger impact players for your team. That's not to say that you can't draft someone 1 year and have them impact the first year, but it takes time to transition that position. The good thing is they shouldn't have to come in and be a right away starter, but you still have to see Jeff Okudah. He's coming off an injury. He's got to improve. He definitely has to improve to be one of our top corners next season. I think Dunbar can be really good when he's healthy, so I'm so excited for Dunbar. Dunbar was a huge signing. I like what the Lions did with corner, signing Elder, replacing Coleman. I thought great value there. Signing Dunbar, replacing Trufant was incredible value for what he can be. But I still think cornerback is a spot they could definitely use to add. We saw last season how important it is to just have depth. I mean, 3-4 is not enough, especially if you're going to play a lot of nickel. You got to be pushing 6-7 solid. You got to be confident 6-7, sometimes 8 corners that you got, and they could also help you in special teams. So that's not to say Lions have to do that first, second, third round. They could look, with their last couple picks and do that. You could add multiple corners. I mean, it can really range here, but it is a spot where I would say the Lions don't be shocked that they grab at least one corner in this year's draft, especially if they can add more picks. Next up, I'd go with the linebacker position at 2. Linebacker is a spot where, like we said with the other ones, you could roll into the season and say, hey, here's what we got. You want to have 3 solid linebackers. Lions have Reeves Maben back, which is exciting. I think, he could be looking at a nice season. I think he might fit the scheme way better, which is what he was drafted for. But yeah, we still haven't seen him play a ton on defense, so there still are some unknowns there. You have Sean Dion Hamilton, but he's a futures contract. And I think the biggest piece to this is going to be Jelani Tavai, to what his role is going to be for Lions. I mean, can they get Jelani Tavai involved on this defense? I mean, I don't know. It's going to be interesting because Tavai was clearly built for probably a different defense than what kind of linebackers Lions have been signing. So how can they find a way to get him involved? Is he going to shed weight? Is he going to try to get quicker? Is he going to try to get leaner? How's that going to work? If he can get involved, great. He can really help and salvage kind of that second round pick. You don't want to lose out on a second round pick. That's tough. So he's a very big part of this linebacker group. If he can't serve an impact, now you're very light at linebacker with really nobody that's very much proven at all. Aside from Jamie, how many guys can we say, hey, this is a solid linebacker, right? We're not sure with a lot of guys. I like Anzalone. There's just still some questions. There's some, questions about the linebacker group and how much production we're getting. Lions, I think the linebacker group just needs legitimately to get more better. They just need more talent. And I think linebacker coach could definitely help, but I think linebacker is one of those spots where at least draft one. I mean, just draft one. I don't think, you don't have to. Technically, you could go in with what you got. You could say, hey, we're going to run a majority of 4-2-5. Maybe you could take a big step forward. We could see a lot of things, and that would be great. I do think linebacker is in a great position right now where you could draft someone, let them be mentored by Jamie Collins. But again, this could fluctuate. I mean, you could look late in the draft. I do like a lot of early guys, so I could see linebacker being slightly early, possibly in the top 3 rounds. But I do have linebacker at 2. But like I said, Lions did a really good job. I mean, getting Maben, getting Alex Anzalone was a big signing for me, but still a lot of one-year deals there. So even the future is really up for question. So, it would be nice to have, again, guys that are coming at least with 1 year experience heading into 2022. Lions defense allows for guys like Jelani Tavai to be involved, then yeah, sure, I think this is a good spot for this. If not, then linebacker's probably pretty easily my number 1. Like I said, these top 5s are very movable, but regardless, the way I do my drafts is I usually try to hit on one of every position here, and linebacker could easily be number 1. But we'll see how they use Giant Divide. It's not knowing exactly what scheme are looking like, which has me right now sitting at 2. But like I said, I would have no issue with our first pick being a linebacker. And this could fluctuate. I mean, you could look late in the draft. I do like a lot of early guys, so I could see linebacker being slightly early, possibly in the top 3 rounds. But I do have linebacker at 2. But like I said, Lions did a really good job. I mean, getting Maben, getting Alex Anzalone was a big signing for me, but still a lot of one-year deals there. So even the future is really up for question. So, you know, it would be nice to have, again, guys that are coming at least with one-year experience heading into 2022. And then finally, we have the receiver position. Now, receiver, I don't think it's a spot where you have to go 7. I don't think it's like that. However, you could, and this could vary. You could look at, you know, late picks and get a couple. You could look at 1. You could look at multiple receivers. Just depends. You have more picks, obviously that opens it up. 6 picks can make it difficult to get multiple in one position, but receiver is a spot where you have Tyrell Williams, which is, I think, a really nice receiver. Great value there. He's coming off an injury, so we'll see. But I think Williams was your best free agent signing for the value. Then you have Rashad Perriman. Much better recently. Obviously, Speedster can be a number 2 receiver. He can do it. We've seen it. But obviously, we've seen consistencies. We've seen injuries there. So still some concerns. I think Cephas takes a big jump. But that's still to be determined. But I think he takes a big jump this year. But then you have Allison, right? You have a lot of depth guys. Khalif Raymond, Damian Ratley. So not only do you have a lot of one-year deals here, because pretty much every receiver that you have is a one-year deal that you signed this offseason, I think receiver can translate, which is a smart move by the Lions, because I think you could go next year draft receiver and they could impact year 1 way easier than other positions can. But I still think receiver is probably the spot where you could argue is the biggest need in terms of not drafting a single receiver could be a big mistake. However, because it's a deep class, I don't think you have to do it extremely early. It just depends on how you feel the board. I think receiver is so deep that it allows you to wait, spot where you should at least draft 1. So that's how I rank the Lions' needs heading into this year's draft. We have 9 days until the draft, or 10 days. So let me know your thoughts, comments below. Thank you for watching, and I'm out.